Welcome back. The Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action PRAWA is a non-governmental organization established in 1994 that is aimed at promoting security, justice and development in Africa. I had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Uju Agomoh, the founder of this initiative. Let's take a look. Thank you very much, Ma, for this opportunity. You've been doing a very great job, and I would like to know, at what point in your life did you decide to establish PRAWA?
I think a little bit of this is also in our website. What happened was that I had gone to do my youth service, and this was in Ondo State, and I was serving with the police, the Nigerian police, Ondo State Command, and I was specifically assigned to the public relation office of the headquarters. Now, one of the assignments I have is that every morning I have to look at newspapers and notice whatever thing connects to the place. So I'll mark them, cut up the papers and place on the plain paper, and then file them. There's a way we do it. And then I would also, if that's for the attention of the Commissioner of Police, which the PPRO, which is the Public Relation Officer of the Police, will take on to him. Then I will also draft some kind of what would be the response. So if it was a letter, if it was whatever, So, but it was then through that I realized that literally every day there was something bad about police didn't do. It was too much. So I now went to the Commissioner of Police, my CP, and it was Commissioner of Police Zanda Iduma, of blessed memory. He's dead now. But then I asked him, I said, if they could, I want to know more about the different units of the Nigerian police in the command. I want to have a feel, and that was to give me more information so that if I'm responding, I know what I'm recommending and all the rest of them. So he said that's not a problem. So I then began to do a tour of the various units, and that time, so I went to the CID section, which is the Criminal Investigation Department, and that's where you have the people that detained and all that. So of course I went to the other units, but that place I became very interested about that, and then went into a research that enabled me to talk to the detainees in there, and also to those who were inside the prisons, former prisons, the custodial centers in the state. And we designed me was now myself and my husband then, who I'm married. I was just like a research colleague, somebody he was actually very interested also in that research. So he used to come from Lagos to Akure to join me in some of the weeks for the research. It was when and this we're talking about, this was 1989-90. Okay, so it was when I now began to do the analysis, look at what I was getting from the respondents being the detainees in the CID cells, and the prisoners or awaiting trial inmates in the then prisons in the custodial centers. I was shocked by what I saw, and this is what shocked me. Part of what I was trying to find out from them is what is called social demographic characteristics. Simply said, people, want to know who are these people. You want to know their psychological makeup. You want to know their background, their family background. You want to know their ages. You want to see whether there's a pattern that one could see. Remember at this time, I had never been to prison before. The way I was used to see prison was almost the way one sees a cemetery. So I used to think that those you find in prison were like so bad, terrible. So what shocked me was that I found out that there were people who were there who were innocent. Yeah, because at least they said they were innocent. This is based on it's a self-report methodology or a survey that I did, which means they themselves give an account. And some said, did you, because one of the questions was that, are you innocent or guilty of the offenses? So there were people who said they were guilty. There were people who said they were innocent. So those who said they were innocent and those who said they were guilty, when I looked at their social demographic characteristics, this background, the social demographic characteristics, I saw a pattern that were showing that these people required support. So take it, the person who said, I am innocent, you look at it, little or no education, no job skills, battered, some of them sexually abused. So it was as if these were, persons, no, these were persons I'm talking about now, those who are saying, who said they are guilty.
Yes.
So if they were guilty, you are seeing drug problems, you are seeing all sorts of problems, and maybe they had problems in their families, maybe broken homes, maybe all terrible kinds of stuff. Yeah. Then those who were saying they were innocent, you looked at them, they were very poor people. You don't go and say you wrongly kind of addressed a very comfortable person and rich and say and he was Mr. A. Very rarely will you find that. So oftentimes there are persons who are marginalized. They're poor. They didn't have a lawyer who would defend them, who would speak for them. They didn't have the money to pay, or and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about rehabilitation. Care, direct support services to prisoners, because I'm sure you've actually had your experiences. Ex-prisoners, torture victims, youth at risk, and their families, and community engagement. Let's talk about that.
Oh, thank you very much. As again, remember when I was speaking, I talked about this issue of rehabilitation. Rehabilitation, it's so key. But I want us to understand that rehabilitation does not really stand on its own. So usually some people would use up the word when tell you the 3 R's. The 3 R's meaning reformation, rehabilitation, and reintegration. In some countries, like in the US, they use the word re-entry. So you're talking about returning back into the society. So whatever it is, it's important to note that once somebody is in custody, there must be something that needs to be done with that individual to change the position. So when you talk about reformation, meaning that person was doing something bad before. So it will apply to inmates that had offending behavior, para-offending behavior. Okay? Remember that I have told you there are 3 types of people who are in prison. The innocent will not apply here. But of course, those who were not innocent, will apply. So whether they were minor offenders or they were serious offenders or hardened criminals, that will apply. So you want to be able to understand what is it. And oftentimes it starts with the mind view. They would tell you, you would easily understand what are the risks and needs. But before time, first is that change that has to come to the individual. Identifying that and getting to a point where internally work with that individual to make that transformation. So reformation talks about that transformation that needs to come to the individual as a person. But when you now begin to talk about rehabilitation, you are now talking about what are those things that were risk factors that made this particular individual what it was, so that it's sometimes beyond the person, which you can now have to begin to work on to get that person to identify these and then work on that. So, and I give you an example. You find out that somebody you have dealt with has a problem that he doesn't have a job. Never had it. No job skills. Or he had a job skill, but he didn't know how to translate that to money. So you are then beginning to say, while you are in prison, I'm going to work with you to first of all ensure you build the skills. But if you find out that person can be educated, so you're going both formal or informal. If you can get to the formal track, you do that because you know that the chances of that formal track, it will even help the person, even if he decides to go informal track later on. But the person, you may say, if he doesn't have the capacity to do that, it's okay. What do you want? What do you enjoy? So you're able to deal with that. So, and then you build that over time. So with the concept of rehabilitation for the prisoner and inmate, you are looking at what is the duration you're going to be staying here for. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Let me plan the regime and activities that I can have with you so that we can use it meaningfully. So sometimes it may be an anger problem, the person that have been violence or some kind of a thing. And then you know that you need to work with this person to deal with things like anger management.
Yes.
Okay? Alternative to violence training or whatever it is. So you're able to deal with that point. But sometimes it may be some other things, yeah? But whatever is those risk factors, so there must be a need and risk assessment at the time you're talking about rehabilitation. And then be able to address this risk and needs. Okay, is it drug problem? Then you deal with issue of that drug problem to address substance abuse and all that. So rehabilitation talks about that. So when you are dealing with an inmate, a prisoner, you need to understand that any time the inmate is brought in, there are certain factors that are outside. So this inmate comes with certain, background that also what happens to the inmate there can determine the trajectory that inmate goes in. So for example, if the inmate is innocent, It means that this person can come in contact with those who will corrupt him or her. So we have to talk about the issue of classification of the image. You know, you have to talk about, that's when you're talking about rehabilitation, talking about classification. What are the kind of programs that you have? How do you follow up that image? How do you identify the needs and risks, as I have said?
Alright, just so you know, PRAWA works by researching human rights, implementing innovative projects, documenting violations, and providing support services to vulnerable groups. Coming up next on Public Intel is Public Intel Exclusive. So stay with us, we'll be right back. On Public Intel Exclusive, I have Ahmed Fulanwike Johnson, who was arrested in October 2010 in Kenya. According to him, he went for a holiday at a relative in Kenya, but then he was arrested. And he made an appeal, and his sentence was reduced from 15 years to 10 years with a remission of 8 years. I have him here in the studio, and he will tell me all about his arrest and his life in Kenya.